My whole constituents, managers and insurance administrators and all that, we don't have mandated training for anything. So that's what I deal with all the time. I mean, and ethics in billing has been a huge issue. You've got people all the time asking me, my doctor's asking me to do this, asked me to do that. Is it wrong? Yes, get the heck out. Because here's the thing is, managers don't know that they can be named as part of a suit. You can't think of yourself as a victim. You have to think of yourself as extracting yourself from the situation and doing the right thing. And in protecting yourself is getting out of that situation. However, you have to get your ducks in a row. If you cannot financially get out of that situation, then get your ducks in a row so that you can get out of that situation. And then you document the heck out of everything.
Yeah, this is a tale, oh yeah, a tale of two hygienists. So there might be only one, bringing the best of dental knowledge, and we do it all with ease. We cover oral health and screening, and preventing gum disease. We're gonna do a lot of learning, and have a little bit of fun working at the dentist. A tale of two hygienists.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of A Tale of Two Hygienists, an Endeavor Business Media production. This is episode number 406. I'm your host, Andrew Johnston, and thank you so much for spending time with us today. I think over the last many years, you've probably come to expect a certain level of education quality, something there. You want to come here and you want to learn. I think that we have some of the most amazing guests that come on all the time. But I'm going to say that this episode, this particular one, is going to be mostly gossipy, I think. I think it's going to be not as educational. Well, actually, let me take that back, because I think one of the key components of what you will learn is what not to do when it comes to relationships in the office. I'm not necessarily talking about romantic relationships, but I think relationships between your boss, between your coworkers, and all of that kind of stuff. So we have on the show today, Teresa, Duncan, and Missy Mattingly joined us again as co-host / guest. We recorded this one at ADA SmileCon. You'll be hearing a lot from Misty over the next couple of weeks. Special thanks to ADA, by the way, for hooking us up with a great booth space. But yeah, this episode's completely different. And another thing that's going to be different is there'll be the occasional time where maybe we'll talk about a trip or we'll talk about something else, and I'll have a large speaking part. But I think one of the things that I really enjoy is when the guest gets a chance to speak and tell their story and tell their science and evidence and all of the things. In this particular one, I think I end up doing most of the talking, which I think is kind of uncharacteristic for most of our episodes. So I do apologize about that for those of you who are like, Andrew, just let them talk. But once we get into the episode, you'll understand kind of why I'm talking more than normal compared to usual as I set the scene for them. And then next week, we have another great show. I know I say that every single week, but we do have a really great show. Here's the problem, though. It's still kind of in a review process with the partners we're working with on this. I just want to make sure we have the okay to air it. It's a really great episode. That doesn't actually have anything to do with the partner or that company, but kind of how we got connected is a little bit convoluted, and I just want to make sure everything's on the up and up. But if we can't get that one approved, we're just going to move up the next episode kind of in our string, and that one is on setting boundaries with Anastasia Terchetta. It was an episode that kind of made me a little bit uncomfortable because of the whole boundaries thing. So I think you'll love that one, as I am discovering things about myself on air. So that's always fun. So I guess I won't talk too much about next week's episode since it's kind of still up in the air. I forgot to mention also, going back to today's episode, I'm going to put this in the show notes. There's going to be a link to a course that Teresa Duncan is offering. She's offering it to everybody. And essentially what it is she's taking the mystery out of plan design and helping you understand how to manage your insurance systems. If you think that this is something your office might benefit from, she's giving a discount for our listeners, and by extension, your office, $75 off using the promo code ATOTH, ATOTH. To be clear, we're not getting any kickbacks from this. This is not really a promotion. She's just doing this because she's a really kind person. And not to belabor the point even more, but if you as a hygienist, if your compensation is tied into production, you're going to need your team to learn and understand insurances. And many of your teams already do, which is great. But there's a ton out there that aren't. And part of it is because this whole new wave of new hires are just outside of dentistry or whatever the reason is, and they're just not really conversant with the language. They're not conversant with how to talk with the insurance companies or what happens when things get kicked back. you could be losing thousands of dollars a year out of your pocket if someone else is messing up with your claims. So if you think that this is something for your office, make sure you bring it to their attention. But this is a piece of a much larger conversation I think that we probably need to have in the future. And then the last thing that I want to talk about is, I guess, an update on the Philippines dental trip. It's been a little bit of time since we've talked about that. There are a lot of reasons why it's taking me time to lock everything down, but I do have the dates locked in. April 13th to April 20th of next year in the Philippines. And if you're listening to this in the future, I mean 2024 is next year for me now. If you want to go with me on an epic island paradise adventure, we're going to have the best time. A bunch of our friends are going to be there, and we're going to serve a population that is completely underserved, almost untouched by dentistry. And so if this sounds interesting to you, Andrew at atale2hygienist.com. So far, I'll give you a quick overview of what the plan is. We're going to come in April 13th. Everyone's going to meet up in Manila. We have hotel reservations and all that kind of stuff already worked out for everyone. We're going to have a quick meeting about the next couple of days' activities right there in Manila, because we're not staying in Manila. But for that day, if we want to explore Manila a little bit, I can show you some things. Remember, I am fluent in the language, so I can get around. But in Manila, you don't have to be fluent. And actually, most of this trip, you don't have to be fluent or even speak any Tagalog at all or Filipino at all. There's gonna be a ton of English spoken. Our guides are awesome for the next part of the trip. You'll be in great hands. But I did live there. I know this very well, and I'm happy to help you. So we fly into Manila. The next day, we're gonna fly to the island of Coron. It's a 45-minute flight. It's really quick. It's on this little tiny plane. We'll spend the day there. Part of it is to kind of get acclimated to the time zone. Part of it's to rest up from travel if you're a weary traveler. I'll show you some more things. We're going to have a big group meal at that place of this restaurant that I really love. And then the next day, 9 a.m., we're going to go meet out on the boat docks. And we're going to start our 4-day, 3-night, all-inclusive island hopping adventure. The first day and the fourth day, it's all going to be island hopping fun. The middle of that part of the trip, one of the islands that we're going to stop on is going to have a school full of hundreds of children that desperately need us. SDF, glass ionomer sealants, prevention discussions. The docs that we bring on will do some like scoop and fill with SDF base and glass ionomer restorations over the top. Pretty darn basic work that we're going to be doing, but this is exactly what this population needs, especially for their first visit. So after we do that, we're going to go to a place called El Nido in Palawan for a day and a half or so. I'll have more information as time goes on. If you want to know more, you can always email me also. But again, if this sounds like a good time, Andrew at atale2hygienist.com. Oh, and the cost, of course, you're like, Andrew, how much is it going to cost? So the idea is I'm not trying to make money on this trip, right? So I want everyone to have the ability to save the most money on their airfare that they possibly can. So whether that means you're going to be using points that you've accrued over the years, or you have a special friend that has a connection at an airline or whatever. I really don't care how that part works. So rather than building in profit margins and saying, hey, give me $2,000, I'll get you a flight, I'm just going to tell everyone to meet me in Manila. Everyone's going to take care of all of their own flights. Part of that is because this is going to also be a one-man operations. I don't have a whole team that's going to be working on this. It's just going to be me. And so you make your own flights. It's $1,500 for tuition. That's going to cover all of the 4-day, 3-night all-inclusive. It's going to cover all of your lodging. It'll cover most of your food, if not all of it. Once you get into the Philippines, I'll take care of you. But it's kind of getting there that you'll have a little bit more expense. But I can break all of this down. I can explain it a little bit more. I think I'll put that on a different episode rather than continuing on this really long introduction of an episode. But it is coming. Let me know if you want to go. All right, that's all for this part. Enjoy this episode with Teresa and Misty.
A tale of two hygienists.
Welcome everyone into the interview portion of the podcast. So today we have Teresa Duncan. Misty Mattingly is joining us again. What I would like, Teresa, if it's okay with you, I kind of want to try and do similar to the format that you do with Kevin and talk about a topic in dentistry, something that's been in the news lately that I think everyone in this podcast again, like that we listen to is going to know what this is, and just take it from there. Because I think there's, in addition to talking about like these things that are happening in this news with this very particular dentist out of Texas who's doing terrible, terrible things, I think there's some standards that we need to set in our industry
I think that there is, I think there's a lot of lessons that can be learned from this with social media, documentation, videoing, all that kind of stuff. So if that's okay, I would love to go in that direction.
Listen, if you want to do salacious, I'm down. Because that's really like that's the tagline
Let's
of
get naughty.
our podcast. So let's go for it.
Well, I texted you. I was like, hey, I want to have a gossipy podcast. Is that okay? You're like, I'm in. Like, okay, great. So, by the way, welcome back to the show.
It's always a pleasure to talk with you.
Freak, I love when you're on.
Always.
This is great. All right, so let me set the stage because neither of you two are probably as like following this story as I am. And the only reason why I am is because it's in two of the groups that I'm in. There is a TikToker. I can't remember what her handle is, but I'll try and put it into the show notes if I don't think it's going to get me sued. And she's basically she's a non-journalist doing journalism, unraveling this very particular case about this dentist. So the background is, for maybe the listeners who don't know what's going on, is there's this dentist, he's still practicing. As of today, he's still alive.
Yeah.
So actually, he's not practicing.
Oh, no?
Well, hold on, let me back up. Because the post I saw this morning said that his office is closed.
Oh, that's probably.
But I don't know if he's
good
just doing that by himself, or if they the board shut him down already, or what's happening. So, oh my gosh, we're foreshadowing like how bad this.
Oh my gosh, he might
is.
actually be in there like deleting all sorts of stuff too. So.
Oh, and that's probably true. Like deleting all. We'll
But
talk about
anyways, let's go.
narcissism a little
I
bit
know.
later
I'm
about all
having
this
to
stuff.
get a little up to date on this. So I'm
this doctor apparently, and with this TikToker doing this most amazing journalism for not being a journalist, from what I understand, she is getting stories from firsthand accounts of interactions. So the premise is this doctor is doing smile makeovers, and in return, he is allowed to video and kind of capture that moment of the unveiling about this is their new beautiful smile, and he posts that all over social media. It's been picked up by a lot of the big publications. I don't know for sure, but like NBC, CBS, like you think of those big CNN, like these big news outlets have featured him in the different publications, like, hey, this doctor is doing some really cool things,
Which means he's getting credibility, so that assigns credibility to him.
Exactly.
Interesting. Okay.
So when I first heard about some of the maybe controversial stuff that he was doing, not maybe very controversial stuff that he was doing, was actually several years ago. There was another dentist who had made a claim in one of our groups of like, hey, just don't trust this person. Like, can't tell you all the stuff, but it's really bad. And then slowly the screenshots started coming out. And it was like, hey, I'll do a smile makeover, but I kind of want some of this other compensation in return, or some kind of sexually suggestive
other
jokes.
compensation.
Yeah. And
I'm dying now. I want to know all this stuff.
there was one post that kind of gave him the I guess name of like being the pizza doctor of this particular doctor. His family was out of town, and he sent a message to, from what I understand, is one of his patients that said, hey, my family's out of town, why don't you come over and watch a movie and eat some pizza with us? And just having these these boundaries that aren't really there, right? And so as things are kind of unraveling more and more, you see that there's some hostile language even being back and forth if he's giving a smile makeover and the person didn't respond in an appropriate amount of time, then he just has unleashed some venom and like, well, don't ever, we're going to finish the top, but I'm not going to finish your bottom teeth. Like that kind of stuff. It is really interesting.
Like he won't do it unless they partake in whatever his extracurricular activity is.
That part's not explicitly stated in the kind of reporting that I've read or I've watched, but it's more of because they had other things and didn't respond back to him in a timely manner, like not making him their world essentially. That he's done with them. He doesn't care about them anymore. He's moving on to the next person. And
he has like a following.
A huge following.
A huge following is what I've just looking up and then like really kind of taken back because I'm new to this, the pizza dentist.
So now I'm just picturing legions of women out there with just the top teeth done. Like
in
the
Texas.
top teeth crew, yeah.
In Texas. Oh, isn't it in Texas? Poor Texas.
It's and that was just one of many different things. He was arrested before, and
I remember this, and he
remember
actually
why?
he changed, but I don't remember why, but I know that he changed his name.
He did.
And that's explicitly
Ooh.
against the Texas
So you
State
saw the same
Board
thing I
dental
saw.
rules.
Yeah.
So he changed his name to avoid it and it was a misrepresentation of him professionally,
Exactly.
which is
Well,
against the rules.
And how can you legally, you can change your name, but I wonder how would that, like if you changed your name, wouldn't that change like your license and all that type
Yeah,
stuff?
but who
Wouldn't you
actually
have to-
wants to see your license? I mean, how many patients have actually wanted to see your license?
Wasn't
You
he
know what
going
I
by
mean?
like his real first
Oh.
name instead of his middle name, or middle name instead of his first name, or something
Something.
interesting?
something like that?
I can't remember exactly all the details, but it was just, it's again another like check mark of like, okay, like you are intentionally doing this thing.
It's
For sure.
deceiving.
Yeah.
Did I say anything about the Netflix thing yet?
No,
No.
what's this?
So
Netflix. Oh my goodness.
allegedly, he had a deal coming through with Netflix for a show.
Really?
Kind of like the home makeovers shows, but it's going to be a dental makeover show.
I've been saying that there should be a dental reality TV show for years and years and
yes.
years.
You know who really I want to do something like that? Do you ever watch Tabitha Takes Over, the hairdresser?
Yes, that's exactly what I would love to
This
do.
is what I'm
I would love to
saying.
take over a
Go-
dental office, because my husband he's a bartender, so he loves like the bar takeover.
Right.
But I love Tabitha Takeover. I actually used Tabitha Takeover when I was a district manager, oftentimes to train my office managers.
See?
On
This
things.
is what we got a thing here.
Because they have there's so much that you could take from Tabitha's Takeover that you could utilize in the dental practice, right?
You're going to have to link that in the show notes.
No,
Tabitha
that's not going
Takes
to happen.
Over.
Tabitha
As
will
much
get in
as you guys
trouble
didn't know
with
about
us.
this other thing, I have no idea what you're talking about right now.
Oh my
I'm
God,
so
you would
lost.
love it. No,
it's great. I mean, I utilize
you
it
could
to
do
train.
the clinical part, and I could take over the front part, and
Yeah.
we could just
love it.
rock this out. People call us.
We
call
could
us.
call us. We're starting something new here.
Look how many
I'll link
projects
that to the show notes too.
How many projects you've birthed over the
There's
years?
so many things.
You are
Oh my
birthing
gosh.
lots of projects.
Oh man. So this doctor, was arrested before, changed his name, worked in a different.
What was he arrested for previously?
For prescribing medications that were, from what I remember, and I might be wrong, so someone's going to have to fact check that, but medications that were outside of his scope, but then also medication, like pain medications for, and probably narcotics for his friends and family.
Well, that would impact his DEA number, so I'm shocked that
Well,
nothing
what a
was
nice
ever done
guy
that.
to take care of his friends and family. Like,
Yeah, I
True.
mean,
What a
so
nice
like, I just want you guys to be
Yeah.
happy,
Right,
comfortable,
yeah,
out of
gosh.
pain. Well, it's interesting.
Here's some
So,
Valium.
Dentistry Unmasked and Dr. Mead, Alan Mead, who we
Yeah.
know very well,
Yes.
who we love, they did an episode on this not too long ago as well, and I think it came out this week. Well, by the time this airs, I don't know what week's going to be, but they were talking about the boards. Well, and you understand this from a board perspective of, you have this guy who has been in trouble for so many years. How does he have a license? And so that's kind of what I want to talk about a little bit right now is like, how does someone who has all of these problems continue to have a license and do this to people?
Well, I don't know if you guys have watched. Did you guys watch Dr. Death? That was in Texas too, and so
No.
it makes me a little bit. That actually, so I had back surgery November 30th, and so I literally started watching Dr. Death right before I had back surgery. And he was an orthopedic surgeon in Texas, and he really he kind of scooted through school a little bit, like was kind of the pet because he had this like cool entrepreneur idea. And so his professor kind of like scooted him through. So when he actually got out and was performing surgeries, like he was a good salesman, right? But he didn't really and he really harmed like several people, and he would move from hospital to hospital, right? And so the board let him get, and that's one of the things. And when I watched that docuseries, I was really kind of, being a board member, it made me really think differently. Like because also as a board member, we are also looking at like you're my colleague,
Sure,
right? Like
yeah.
what I am looking
Yeah.
at you as my colleague, and so to take somebody's license or something like that, like I think we all we're human.
Because you feel bad about it.
feel
You don't
bad
want to do
about
that
it,
to your
right?
colleague.
And this situation in Texas, the same situation, this happened in Texas, things kept up, but they never, they would just slap him on his hand and so forth. And he really harmed, people can't walk. He killed somebody.
Wow.
He literally, it made his best friend a quadriplegic.
Oh my goodness.
And had no remorse,
Oh,
right?
wow.
Like he was kind of a
Awful.
psycho.
How
And-
nervous were you going through back surgery
Oh,
after
I'm
this?
super nervous about it. I was like, what the heck am I doing here? Why would I watch this beforehand? But what it really made me think about was how these cases are people, like, for instance, this doctor in Texas, right? Dennis, been in trouble multiple times. And it's probably came before the board, and they've probably addressed some things. But they probably have been, like, a little bit maybe more lenient than maybe they should have in regards. And this is kind of what happened in this Texas.
So the thing that bothers me about that, though, like, you're right. So they probably were. A hygienist does the same thing. They're losing their license in a second.
Oh, if we did something outside our
You know
scope,
what I mean?
we're losing our license.
That's what, it's such an inequity where.
But that's
you-
because there's a lot more, they're much more understanding of their own. Like I said, you're much more understanding, like I'm going to be much more understanding probably for a hygienist than a dentist would be for a hygienist. So
Right, but equally egregious acts either way. Like, it's
I
just,
absolutely
it's not,
agree.
I think that, and I guess that's kind of where I'm like, these board members are volunteers usually, and some of the times they're appointed,
Yeah.
whatever.
But isn't there some liability involved? Aren't they worried about?
I think there is, and I,
mean,
think that's one of the things that we
yeah.
have to be more mindful of. I mean, our job is to protect the public as a board member. But in Texas, I would begin to question, like, what type of, disciplinary things did this doctor have? And then it continues to grow. I mean, we just passed a rule that actually kind of deals with, Pizza Doctor's situation where he's asking for extracurricular activities. We actually put in a rule against, like, sexual conduct and stuff like that.
Oh,
So
really?
then that way we can
Wow.
inhibit that, because that is something culturally
Yeah.
that we've seen. I mean,
Yeah.
you and I both have experienced,
Yeah, we have,
in the dental practice. And it's sad. It's something we don't talk a lot about, but it's one of the reasons why I do love the DSO model, because there's, there's a legal team, there's an HR, like if you had an issue or you felt uncomfortable, you had somebody to talk to, and you have people that are, there's rules and guidelines, versus in a private practice, it's just you and that doctor. And I think that gives them a lot of autonomy sometimes to do things that might be a little inappropriate. And it makes it really difficult when I talk to hygienists. They're scared to say anything.
Yeah, well, I
Right?
think
There's
it's
so-
always a culture of fear, for
Yeah,
sure.
it's that culture of fear that if I said anything, then I would lose my job, or right, like I
Right.
have to have this paycheck. I'm a single mom, and that's really sad to see. That we have that still, right? Like, we should be at this point. I feel like if something has happened, we should be able to speak about it and speak up and be confident about
100%,
that, right?
For sure. Well, and so when I say liability, as a board member yourself, do you have, like, if you were to pass something down and would say, so for example, perhaps Pizza Doctor would say, you guys are coming after me. I'm coming back after you. So he sues
they
the
can
state.
absolutely board.
Yeah, they're
So
they're
you
allowed
would
to sue the
the
board,
board members.
but the board members
are not?
individually, depending on the state, probably.
Okay.
But at least in Washington, where I was at, there was some exemptions there where it's
Okay.
like you're not liable for these
So
X, Y, and Z.
that's what I'm thinking. I
Correct.
don't know,
So now we're-
like, because maybe these board members are, and maybe they know how unhinged he is, allegedly,
Yeah.
and are, worried about repercussions and stuff. I mean,
But it'd probably be more like social repercussions. It would
Social-
probably be
well,
more
just-
attacks on social media. and,
Yeah,
oh,
that too.
Andrew, the board member from Texas, like, he's such a jerk. He doesn't understand what's going on.
Right.
And doing that kind of stuff. And then Andrew, the board member, is not going to go back and say anything
Yeah.
about this person.
I mean, you got a
publicly.
loose cannon that you.
Yeah.
that
Well,
they-
I think he is a loose cannon.
for
I mean,
sure.
from what you guys are saying.
Oh my
there.
gosh,
I mean,
yeah.
this guy is so often left field and inappropriate with the way that he's handling his patients and the
Yeah.
way he's handling his staff.
Well,
I mean,
let's get-
Andrew, tell the story.
Yeah, let's get some more
Let's get
salacious.
some-
I don't know if
So,
I want
I
to tell
mean-
that story. That story is a little bit like that was a good off-air story. I'm not going to tell the story, but suffice it to say though,
thought
there
we were
was a
getting-
Christmas.
I know. Can I
Well,
just say
Andrew
that I
has
heard?
Andrew has an image that he has to protect.
I don't. Let's go. I'm kidding.
Well, let's just say this: there was a party, whether it was a Christmas party or whatever. All of the staff were invited into said doctor's house, and they were given a gift that was very inappropriate. They all got the same gift. It was sexual in nature. And I think all of his staff, by the way, are women, if that helps kind of connect all of the dots.
I mean, that kind of gels with the
That kind
personality.
of gels with the
right?
personality. I mean, I would assume, and I imagine they're all pretty attractive too.
I'm sure. I'm sure. So they got these gifts, and they were kind of like, "What the heck?" And I'm sure some
I
were
mean, I
like,
wonder what their
"Ooh,"
husbands
a lot of nervous
thought.
laughing.
Well, yeah.
It felt like.
I mean, you don't.
And there's actually the video online
Yeah.
for this. This is insane.
Which we,
like,
again,
why
this
would
is
you
a,
like? I guess did he know that this was being?
he's the one that videoed it, It's all coming from him,
Yeah,
and
he
he
really
posts it
seems like a
to
narcissist,
his.
like you were
Yeah,
oh my
saying.
gosh,
he does
let's
seem like
talk
a
about
narcissist.
narcissism here in a
Like
little
he
bit.
really
but-
just enjoys, like, I think, freaking people out, and so getting the reactions and
Out of people.
Yeah, but there has to be some sort of duty to the patient, and I think that was just thrown out the window from everything I've read. So I just think this guy doesn't go by any of the rules that we see as norms
Yeah.
in dental practice. He just does his own thing, and he's using his services as bartering for his own, I guess, human
Needs?
nature, what he perceives as needs, right? So
I'm trying to find here the link to the TikTok, and I'll put it in the show notes, obviously, as well. But as I was looking for this, there's another post here where that says there was a patient that was under sedation that was groped by a dentist, and that person lost their license. How are these different?
not at all. I still think
So the
it's a
person
dude
lost
who's
their license for what? Say that
groping.
again.
For groping a sedated patient. Rightfully so. Again, they should have lost their license for that.
Sure.
I guess at that point,
Well, I
it's,
think
it's
that's
not
different
consent,
because
right?
that would fall into suit from the board perspective, right? Because it's providing care to a patient, but maybe you would.
I don't
know,
know,
I can see that,
blackmailing
but-
a patient though for reactions and not finishing their bottom teeth.
I mean,
Allegedly is what we've seen.
Patient
right?
abandonment
So,
and-
patient abandonment, or just it's
I mean,
just
patient
unethical.
abandonment alone is unethical, right?
Yeah, but but
Especially-
you'll probably hear the argument that okay, so he's kind of a crappy person. You can't really mandate not being crappy. Like, so how do you make that a guideline? I mean, there's definitely some rough players out there that are dentists and hygienists both. People we wouldn't hire.
I also, though, personally, just because my first degree was in broadcast journalism, right? And so there's a lot of that in broadcast journalism, or used to be. If you know the Megyn Kelly story and you watched, I think the movie's Bombshell.
Yeah.
Right? That talks a little bit. It's very similar. I also go back to the staff. Like, if my doctor gave me that, I would no longer work for him. And I
course.
think at some point, like, there needs to be like a line where you too, as a professional, need to uphold your own standards. And
Yeah.
I would have been like, well, peace out, see you later.
But I think that the difference is I'm not sure how many hygienists versus how many assistants he has on staff.
Yeah.
Based on how he works, I would bet there's a lot more assistants and maybe one or two hygienists total. I feel like hygienists, and we're hit and miss too, but I feel like assistants are even less like power, like in a authority position.
Oh, I
like
believe
we
so, yeah.
we are
Yeah.
like at least could like, look, dude, I'm going to find a job somewhere else. I don't need you. But I think assistants have a harder time saying no, a harder time, saying when they're uncomfortable, because they're working chairside with these doctors too.
No, I get that, because when I was an assistant, like I said, I do remember that.
I'm going to guess though he pays well. So you've
yeah.
got a whole thing where
And he gets you pizza daily.
He gets you. I mean, hard to
Only
argue
if.
for the first little
Only
bit.
if no one's home.
So I
And
just,
Netflix.
It's really hard though to when you're somebody who's working at a level that you maybe don't need a degree for. It's a good job to get into. You're probably making good pay with this guy.
Good
It's
point,
hard to walk
yeah.
away from that. Maybe you've got family obligations, and that's the case in any of these. Any harassment suits or any of these in weird situations that workers find them in, there's always a why didn't you leave sooner? Well, you know what, I've got bills to pay, and so it's hard to knock that. But at the same time, I definitely would leave, but now I have to think. Wait a second, I was married. If I left, would be tough, but we'd make it work.
Well,
and
that's what I mean, that they're all bound by that, right?
Right.
Like, and so it makes it harder for them to walk out and make that determination. But at some point, you got to put yourself first.
Well, and you got to be able to sleep at night. Like if you know that
No.
this dude's out
God,
there
yeah.
doing stuff, like how.
But do you know that that's not normal in dentistry? Like if you haven't gone through ethics courses like we did in school, or like
Yeah.
a dentist has done in school, and you are not hired like off the street, but a lot of states you don't have to be registered. We talked about that earlier.
Yep.
You don't have to have necessarily any sort of coursework for ethics. How do you know that's not okay?
Well, listen, my whole constituents, managers and insurance administrators and all that, we don't have we don't have mandated training for anything. So that's what I deal with all the time. I mean, and ethics in billing has been a huge issue. You've got people all the time asking me, my doctor's asked me to do this, asked me to do that. Is it wrong? Yes, get the heck out. Because here's the thing is, managers don't know that they can be named as part of a suit.
Oh, absolutely.
But they don't think about that, right?
Yeah.
And so if they've taken like one insurance course through me or one management course through somebody else, that's pretty much it, unless they continue to ask for courses. And if they have a doctor that's not, willing to pay for that, then they probably don't get many courses unless it's a free webinar. So we really, there's no ethics training for managers. So we definitely are seeing that on our side, that they're waking up and they're like, I'm really worried. This doesn't feel right. So we have to really trust that people are raised to just not to react to things that don't feel right.
Yeah.
Then the ethics training gives them some guidance on how to do that. But yeah, in general,
There's a lot of broken people, though. A lot of
Yeah,
broken
for
people
sure.
that just, I think it keeps getting worse, in my opinion, that, the abuse, like the growing up in broken homes and, abusive environments normalizes so freaking much.
Oh, yeah.
And probably there was the thread in the group that we're in that we, see. There was a talk about how probably a lot of these patients are gravitating towards him, even though he's saying totally berating things like, you're too fat, you're too ugly, you're all these things. They still want the work done because that's not too far outside their normal anyway.
Yeah.
Well,
Like,
does
that
he
was-
do good work?
I will not comment on the quality of the work, but what I've seen other doctors say about his work is that it's not to the level of that it should be. But I'm not a dentist, so I can't
No,
qualify.
absolutely.
I got to admit, I scrolled through for the story. I never actually looked for his work. Isn't that terrible?
I just always look, I think that, this is going to sound awful, but, I think sometimes when doctors or dentists or anybody, if they're really good at that, I think sometimes they get away with a little bit more because they're really good at, that clinical piece, that cosmetic piece,
Yeah.
right? So patients will be more drawn to them because they get great.
Well, patients
Cosmetic
don't
results.
know, though. So let's put this this is not. For legal reasons, this is not what that doctor is doing. However, think about all those ads that we see of those clip-on teeth
Oh, snap-on smiles.
that are that are completely hiding everything underneath.
Yeah.
Again,
hate
this is
those
not
things.
the same thing as what this doctor is doing. However, so many patients go after that and think it's a great thing.
Yeah. Well, that's
They're so
'cause-
happy about
But
this.
that's because they're only worried about the aesthetic appearance, right?
Right.
The cosmetic look is what they're
for a price point that they can
for a
afford.
price point that they can afford.
Well,
yes.
free is a heck of a drug.
Exactly.
You see a lot of patients that, and some of these women that he's done the makeovers on probably could have afforded it, but free is a heck of a drug. Plus, they're going to get all sorts of social media exposure at the same time. So,
Well, we just had an interesting little interruption, so I think we've all lost our train of thought.
Back to Pizza Doctor.
Back to Pizza Doctor.
I still can't get past this Christmas party that you were telling me about with the sexual things. I want to talk about that at some point. Like what? Not the explicit stuff, but
Yeah,
like
you can talk about that all you want.
the whole thing with having a Christmas party, or any kind of holiday party, you have to be really careful because there's so much liability involved. I first of all would never have it at my house. Well, just for lots of reasons.
Yeah.
But you have, providing alcohol, providing a good time like that, and
Which we didn't say they provided alcohol to
I'm
anyone
so
that's
sorry.
underage.
You're right.
But potentially there could have been alcohol
you are
there.
very legal-minded. I appreciate that.
Look, this particular doctor is very litigious, so we're just trying to be very careful here. And yeah. Anyways, but yeah, you're right though. There is a lot of liability when it comes to having groups together, inappropriate behavior together, the power dynamics, the alcohol, drug use, all that kind of stuff, which may or may not have been there. We're not saying it was.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just. So let's do this then. Like how can you still have this but not have this?
Well, you can still have like nice dinner. You can have a nice get together somewhere. You
Boring.
can,
Where's my little sound
no, but
thing for
listen,
someone
no.
snoring?
But it doesn't have to be boring. It can be something that they've chosen. Listen, you can do dinner and then you can do axe throwing if you want a little bit of an edge to it. Axe throwing is very popular.
Yeah.
And honestly, a lot of fun. And then you've got lots of other things you can do. Escape rooms to me are boring only because I'm never good at them. So
I was
I
gonna say.
love an escape room. I think an escape room really kind of helps you figure out how you work together as a team.
I have a very hard time in escape rooms. I don't know what it is because normally, like in a crisis, I'm great. But for some reason in there, my brain freezes. So if you figure something out and you go, somebody needs to do this, I'm your girl.
Yeah.
But when it comes to actually figuring that out, I'm like,
There's an escape room here at ADA.
oh.
SmileCon, sorry.
It felt
whatever
like
it's
yeah,
that.
there
There
is.
are
It's just right over
and
there.
you get a
Some
free.
booths feel like an escape room.
called. Like, how do I get out of this conversation? Where's the clue? Oh, that's a good one. I like it.
So going back to, yeah, I know boring, but you know what?
Yeah.
I'd rather be sort of engaging, maybe boring, and not get sued, right?
No, for sure.
You know, I
Right.
mean, pool parties can be fun if you're not in Virginia in the winter. That could be fun. There's lots of things you can do, but
I've
you don't
always-
have to provide things that are going to, if you wouldn't have your mom and dad there, then maybe you shouldn't be doing it. Although
Some mom
with this
and dads are
doctor,
cool,
I'm
though.
really not sure
Yeah, you never
if
know.
he would be there. So
Well,
I'm just
I'd have
so
my mom
funny,
and dad
funny
to
you
a
say
pool
that.
party.
His daughter is employed at the office.
Okay, so
from what
now
I understand.
this is
Hold
totally-
Now,
on,
he
let me-
gave this to his daughter?
Maybe or maybe not wasn't employed at the office, but was at this, I believe, at this Christmas party.
He gave this
Yes,
to his daughter?
I don't know
I
about
believe
that.
so.
I don't know. See, this is the thing. When you
That's
got,
a little creepy.
Because you're trying to be cool. You're
No,
trying to
it's
be like
creepy.
hip and awesome.
So
and
we're saying the dysfunction goes deep, is what we're saying, like super deep,
Potentially,
like
yeah.
generational deep, maybe.
But yeah,
Yeah.
but okay, going back to the whole narcissism thing, in that group that we were looking at, there's a whole thread about, narcissistic personalities.
Sure.
They never think that they're doing wrong. They are quick to cast blame to somebody else and just say like, they ruined me. They, whatever like the furthest degree of the situation is, they're quick to blow that up. But then at the same time, there's like, I'm invincible. Like no one, like I'm bigger than the brand. I'm bigger than the Office in this particular case, or the Netflix special that was allegedly going to come through. I'm bigger than all that. I can weather all of these storms.
Why wouldn't he think that? He's gotten away with it, changed his name, got a slap on the wrist, maybe. I don't even know that full story, but why
Yeah.
wouldn't he think he can get away with it? He's probably had multiple employees that have threatened him and nothing's happened. I mean, these are years that
I'm
he's
still
been doing
intrigued by this changing the name thing. Like, how do you change your name and it not impact your license somehow? Like, you would have to
know.
update your license.
So the TikTok handle, like, I was looking it up. It is Becca Day, BEKAHDAYYY on TikTok. I say like that's where you start your journey, Misty. Like if you really want to know more about like the name change and all that kind of stuff, that's the person that's uncovering a lot of this stuff. Now, she's not the only person, which I think is also interesting because there have been news outlets picking it up now. And Jewel, I don't know if you saw that one.
No.
Jewel talked about him.
Jewel.
Jewel.
The singer Joel.
The singer Jewel?
The
What is
singer
she
with the
doing
tooth, Jewel.
looking at dentistry
The singer with
gossip?
the
What's
tooth,
going on?
yeah.
Well, I think it's because this Becca Day person, like it got onto her thing, and she is huge for like human rights and things like
Yeah.
that. She's just a really good person, and she's just like, this is unacceptable. This is absolutely disgusting. And then there was one more. I scrolled by, and I can't remember all of a sudden. It might come to me later on in the conversation, but another big outlet person, like someone also picked it up and said, "Hey, heads up, everyone! This is something that's happening."
Well, one of my friends in the group that we're both in, she actually has screenshots of conversations that they've had.
Yeah, I think we're thinking of the
We're
same
the
person.
same
yeah.
person, and just it is unbelievable that
Screenshots
shots
of-
of conversations they've personally had. Yeah,
Oh,
and
wow.
so he
Because
really,
dental professionals have come after him a little bit in the past.
Yeah.
And have questioned, I think, did she question his work initially? And then that's what happened. And then he started saying some things.
that I'm not sure of. I'm
Okay.
not sure of.
There,
So
yeah,
he,
there was something.
he, in other words, comes after them, retaliates if they have
Yeah.
something to say.
Which is why I think the board probably was like, do we really want to open this can of worms? I mean, it's a term limit, right? So they're like, maybe this is somebody else's problem in a couple years, which is a terrible way
or
to
maybe
think.
it never
but-
even made it to the board.
Well,
I
that's
mean,
true. I
True,
don't
right?
know.
Like
I-
maybe it just never even made it there because it wasn't necessarily something with their work or something, you know?
Yeah, but this guy, I don't know. You would think the board wouldn't have to. I don't know. Well, actually, maybe you could educate me. I don't know. Does the board have to act on a complaint, or can they just keep an eye on certain people, or are their actions in
Dennis,
reaction?
they like to watch things.
Well,
yeah, I mean, they do
let's
like to
watch,
watch.
Put a watch
let's
on
watch
that
this
big
go
old
from
decay.
harassment to
Let's just-
full harassment.
Let's just watch it get worse. Yeah, I mean, I think, typically boards have an investigator, right? So the board members aren't the ones doing the investigation, right? It would be, there's an investigator that works for the state that would
Yeah.
investigate things like that and then bring it to the board if there was enough evidence that would support, and then the board would then make a determination based on that. So, you can't say what has came about or what rules or whatever thing it is, just for us from an ethical standpoint, right? Like we're just kind of like, what, you would do that?
Yeah.
But that necessarily isn't to harm what he did with his staff, right?
Yeah.
It was inappropriate, but
Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily impact the care that he would provide to the citizens of that state.
I got
Does
it.
that make sense?
Yeah. So you got a labor board situation too that
So,
kind
correct.
of is in there.
So it may not even fall. What I'm saying is, it may not fall underneath the scope of the dental board in that regard.
well, except for the ethics part, but you'd have to have complaints.
Correct.
Right. So Andrew, let's help them out. Like
Well,
the listeners, like,
Let
oh
me,
no, you
let me
found
say,
another
I got
story.
one more thing. Just because talking about like high profile people who are getting involved in this thing. Do you guys know Gloria Allred?
I
You know who
do.
that is?
What is that?
So
I
Gloria
know the
Allred
name,
is
but-
an American attorney known for taking high profile
she's the
and
one that
very
always pops up.
controversial
Yes.
cases,
Yeah.
particularly those involving the protection of women's rights. And she's inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame.
Oh.
She's on it.
So she's going to be representing people.
I don't know. I don't know to what extent. It was a thing that like she is aware of it. She had maybe posted something about it, or someone had said something about
So
it.
then I see
So,
lots
like,
of changes coming about.
I
then
mean-
if it's getting that high,
Allegedly, he's also getting a divorce too. Like I think his wife
well,
is
I
leaving
would
him.
I
and-
would
Yeah, but
hope his
they-
wife would.
But that could be in there for protecting the assets.
Well, that
Boom.
could
You know,
be.
so-
Yeah, because
Yeah.
that is the smart thing to do.
Right.
Actually, if you were going through that, you would break it off, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
that does protect the assets.
Although she's probably just saying, yeah, we're going to protect the assets. Let's get divorced, and then she could disappear. That'd be good for
Yeah.
her.
she can change her name.
something else, yeah. So, well, let me turn that table around on you because I think that maybe I think that you as both have experienced this in a different way than I've ever experienced this. So, what should a listener who has maybe been in a toxic work environment, whether it's to this extent or a lot more subtle, what should they be doing?
They should first of all realize that yes, it stinks that now they're in this situation, because that's what happens is you get really angry at the situation because your life was really fun and happy, and now all of a sudden you've got like this just junk. In
You
your,
can't
in
sleep
your,
at night because
Yeah.
it's bothering you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's really rage inducing actually, because you feel helpless at the same time. You know that there's stuff you can do, but now you're being forced to make hard decisions, and you really were just happy doing your thing.
Right,
So there's
right.
that. You got to get over that. So you can't think of yourself as a victim. You have to think of yourself as extracting yourself from the situation and doing the right thing. And in protecting yourself is getting out of that situation. However, you have to get your ducks in a row. If you cannot financially get out of that situation, then get your ducks in a row so that you can get out of that situation. And then you document the heck out of everything. Whether it's writing
That's
a
key.
journal for yourself, you got to document. And then, it depends on how angry you get. Do you want to go out in a blaze of glory, or do you want to just quietly leave, make the report? And because you should actually, you should do something. You should at least let somebody know what's going on, whether it's the labor board, whether it's an attorney that you want to take on. But you don't want to go out. I don't think you want to go out in a non-smart way with no documentation and gossiping along the way and being angry and saying
Right.
things. So
It's too small of a community to do that.
It's too small.
Right.
So that's what I would advise. But first thing I would do is just realize that, things are going to be really funky for a while.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, we are at our time. Teresa, thank you so much for joining us today. People want to check out your podcasts,
Sure.
or
Chew on
webinar
this,
or whatever.
Chew on This, and Nobody Told Me That is my main podcast with insurance and management. Chew on This is more of our fun talk. We'll definitely be talking about this on there.
I love it. Yeah.
I love this.
You guys have such a good podcast. I love it
Thank
so much. But if they want to email you, or how else can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me on OdysseyMGMT.com. My email's on there. You can find me there. And my new insurance class is out, online insurance class. So if you want 8 hours of insurance, it's good for hygienists too.
I just love it.
Yeah.
Oh, I think so. I
Yeah.
love that.
So it's not coding. It's all about how to manage insurance and talk to your patients. So thank you for letting me do that plug.
Yeah, of course, buddy. Thank you for being on.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, this is a tale, oh yeah, a tale of two hygienists. So there might be only one, bringing the best of dental knowledge, and we do it all with ease. We cover oral health and screening, and preventing gum disease. We're gonna do a lot of learning, and have a little bit of fun working at the dentist. A tale of two hygienists.